right, man, let's go. There's no formality here. We could be already going. You wouldn't even know. I appreciate you doing this, pal.
No, thanks for having me.
It means a lot. Yeah, and I kind of mentioned it to you when I started this project. The toughest thing for me, because I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but a little shy, and I thought, man, I'm going to have to reach out to strangers, people that I think could be very interesting, and kind of invite them to do this. And how's that going to go? And
see, I pretty much am an introvert, so that's why I'm like,
you said yes.
Yeah,
I must have been relentless.
No. I've learned somewhat recently that doing uncomfortable things, you can only grow from doing uncomfortable things. So.
Well, speaking of that,
I mean, I was hesitant to do this because I am very, self-conscious and nervous, and kind of like an introvert, kind of hard for me to talk about myself. So, okay. But then I'm like, you need to do it. Like you gotta get outside your comfort zone.
Well, I'm glad you did. It means a lot.
No, thank you. I'm very humbled that you're even interested in having me. So
well, this is like the idea of doing this podcast was exactly for people like yourself. People doing dynamic stuff that's not the ordinary, right? I mean, people just don't decide to get out and just run like 70, 100 miles. It's like the average person doesn't do that. So, what's the latest thing been going? What did you just complete, or are you getting ready to complete?
I just did a 100K race.
100K.
So it's it ended up being 63.66 miles. And I know the exact miles because it sucks at the end. But
you counting them down?
Yeah, you're like this is supposed to be 62. Where's this extra mile? And I actually did the same race last year, and the course was a little bit different, so it was maybe like a mile longer this year. So I was like, all right, where's the finish line?
So you did the same race last year?
Yeah.
100K. So that's 60, how many miles? 66?
63.
63. And how long does that take to complete?
That took me 14 hours, a little over 14 hours.
Oh, my God. That's painful. That is so painful. Let's wind this back a little bit.
Okay.
So, you're a Pittsburgh native, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Born and raised in the South Hills.
Oh, right on.
So
I used to live in the South Hills.
Yeah, Brookline.
Okay. Fair enough.
Parents are still there.
All right.
I'm in Crafton now, but
that's all right.
Still in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgher. What was childhood like for you?
Got two older brothers. I was a active kid in school and stuff. Like sports. I liked running when I was younger.
So you ran as a child?
I did, yeah.
Huh.
Kind of
track,
cross country, okay. Track. Nothing like
you're one of those guys.
Nothing like I'm doing now, and
still cross country.
Yeah.
We used to look at you guys and go, "What possesses them to run long distances?"
I don't know, something about it. I don't know. Back then, I think I'm actually faster now than I was then, which is crazy to me. But
okay,
it took a while to get there, but just kind of. I played soccer. Baseball, stuff like that, kind of grew up active.
A lot of running in soccer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Way more running than the average person.
I love soccer, though. It was so much fun. I played, like, indoor and outdoor. I was,
right on.
like, right wing, scored a lot of goals.
The winger.
Yeah.
What was your plans after you got out of school? What did you want to do coming out of school, and what ultimately did you do? Because there's always a difference there.
Right, yeah. I actually went to an arts middle and high school for piano.
Okay.
So I'm like a classically trained pianist, but not many people know that because I don't play as much as
I wish I had a keyboard in there. I put you on the spot, pal.
I'd be a little rusty, but no. So I did that all through middle and high school. Kind of, I didn't really want to pursue that as, I don't know, for whatever reason. I just didn't, I don't know.
How do you pursue that?
I don't know.
What are the avenues?
I guess you could be like a concert pianist or kind of like, I don't know. I just kind of like later on in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just kind of like strayed away from it a little bit and stopped playing as much.
Did you play ever since you were young? Were you very young?
Probably about 9 or 10. Yeah.
Okay.
My mom kind of like forced me to.
That's how it always starts.
Yeah.
But obviously you took to it though, right?
Yeah. And I wasn't bad. Like it took me a while to learn songs. It still does, but I'm not one where you can put sheet music in front of me and I just like jam.
What's it called, a sight rating or something like that?
I'm not really good at that. It takes me a long time, like, right hand, left hand.
But you can do it.
Both, yeah, but it takes a lot of work. And
you still play?
Not really. I have a keyboard at home.
See, Mom.
But I keep saying I will, and I'm a new father, so I want to play for my kids, my daughter, twin daughters.
Incentive there.
So,
yeah, there's some incentive.
So yeah, I definitely want to keep up with it.
Oh yeah,
and to teach them and everything.
Yeah, it's such a great gift to pass down. I tried with mine, didn't work per se. I raised all around these fretted instruments, nothing took. Yeah. So beware, it might not take. You
that's
really
okay.
Never know.
That's okay.
I did not expect that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And then in high school, I was pretty good with computers. I kind of got into HTML programming, making web pages and stuff. And I basically just read all this HTML code.
Self-taught.
Yeah.
Wow.
Used up a lot of my high school's printer ink. Printed out, stacks and just kind of trial and error, making web pages. And I liked it. I made some decent, it was all for fun,
Sure.
Dragon Ball Z websites and whatever, skateboarding.
When the web was younger.
Yeah. Our skate crew, I made a page for us, just kind of.
So skateboarding was your thing too?
Yeah, skateboarding too.
Right
yeah.
Right on.
Still do that a little bit. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. It's
good for you.
That's something I always loved. I'm glad that I got into kind of young, middle school.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, I don't know, something with skateboarding where it just kind of...
Is it the culture or the activity?
That, but also just the activity too. It just, trying a new trick, falling and getting hurt.
You don't say.
And knowing, yeah. And knowing it's going to hurt and still just oh man, I really want to do this.
It always hurts.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes, weeks to land a trick, even just starting out a simple ollie or kick flip, a little pop shove it or something, but to just keep trying, but when you land that trick, it's that feeling. It's
accomplishment.
Yeah,
right?
I did it. Yeah, so that it kind of
bridges for sure.
On. Yeah.
So you said you went to the music college?
No, I went to Kappa.
Got it.
High school.
Okay. So you graduate.
Yeah. I actually went to Penn State, McKeesport for information science and technology.
Right. We used to call that MIS. They still call it MIS?
IST. I don't know. It's probably changed now.
What year would it have been?
This was 2002.
Okay. Yeah. So the web was young.
Yeah. A lot's changed. Yeah. It's still just me thinking about it. It's crazy.
We used to call that Web 1.0 back then, right?
I don't even
know. What are we on
now?
Web 4.0? Yeah. Some craziness. Yeah, that was wow.
Is HTML still a thing? It's I
think I had to learn that by default just to survive with my own websites and everything. But that was just Well, I knew that there was that thing where you have the greater than sign and the less than sign in between. I would put a BR and I would get to the next.
The break, yeah. And then
I knew
quotes. If you didn't put the quotes, the whole web page would go
Yes, bad memories now.
Yeah, it's
bad memories.
You're triggering all my PTSD from websites.
No doubt. So did you go to? You went there for 4 years?
No, I only went a year.
A year, okay.
Took a break and never finished. So
I know that story.
And I wasn't sure, I did a year. It was some different things with different aspects of, web design,
right?
Some computer programming, different things. And it was cool kind of doing that. But I wasn't sure if that was exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, I decided to take a break and kind of, started getting random jobs and just... never went back.
When did the decision to be a fireman enter your sphere?
Not probably until 2013.
Okay.
Wait, no, it was earlier than that. About 2005 or 6, I think.
Wow. Okay.
I think, yeah, because my friend Josh, he actually kind of planted the seed. He was
What was that conversation like? Is that like one night, like, hey, let's just go be firemen?
Pretty much, yeah. One of my skateboarding buddies, real good friend. I've known him a long time. Basically, that was it. Like, hey, the city's hiring firefighters. You just apply online. You ever thought about being a firefighter? And I was like, not really, since I was like, a little, little kid,
wagon, right? The little metal wagon.
So I hadn't really thought about it before. And then, he kind of planted the seed, and I started thinking about it. And I'm like, all right, yeah, it's a, good job. It's
a little dangerous.
A little dangerous, yeah. I thought of that too. It's like a little.
But then again, you're talking to a skateboarder, so yeah. Falling on concrete.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought about it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to apply. And so I applied. And then you apply and you get on the list. You go and take a written test. I think you have to get at least 75% or something like that to pass. I forget what I got the first time. It was decent, like 80s or something like that. So you take the written test, you pass that, then you got to take a physical test.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty hard.
I bet. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You weren't in the same caliber of shape at that time that
No.
you are now?
No, I was not.
Okay, so it probably was hard then.
Yeah, I was probably at least, so my weight kind of fluctuated, went up and down for a while. I was probably at least 20 or 30 pounds heavier.
Okay.
Wasn't in the greatest shape. For me, like working out and kind of like being in a decent shape, it was something I do for a little while, for like a couple weeks,
mm-hmm.
a month. I'd really kind of get in a groove and then fall out of it. And something
mm-hmm.
would happen where it's, all right,
mm-hmm.
this tastes good,
that's
McDonald's
like 90,
and like
97% of Americans, right?
Yeah. So I did that a lot. So it was like a lot of like, all right, gonna work out, and I worked at the YMCA for a while as a lifeguard. So it was like, I'm at the gym, I'm gonna work out while I'm here. So I'd work out while I was at work, when I'm done with work or whatever, and did that for a while. And then even being there, sometimes it would be, I'd do it for a couple weeks and then be like, I'm gonna skip today, I'm tired. So yeah. So that was kind of up and down for me for a while.
But did you get the job in 2005?
No, so it took me. So I did the physical test.
Okay.
Got on the list. Didn't get hired that year. They absorbed Wilkinsburg Fire Department.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
So
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
on that list got hired. So me and my buddy both applied that time.
Got it.
So nobody got on. I think it was about 3 years later, because you get on the list for 3 years. I think it's shorter now, but. So 3 years later, same process, written test, physical test, got on the list. I didn't get hired. My buddy got hired. So I was like, sweet. 3 more years, I'm going to try again. But something after I started, from the first time that I took the test and something in me I really wanted to get that. Like I would try as long as I was, able to.
Yeah.
Pass the physical test, I would keep taking it because I really wanted to get on the job.
Why do you think that was? Did you ever think about that? Try to analyze it?
Not really. I think sometimes when I like really want something, like want to do something,
mm-hmm.
I don't know, something kind of drives me where it's like I just really want to do this thing. Like this goal. Yeah, this goal I need to try as hard as I can to get it done.
So you were compelled to be a fireman.
Yeah.
But now, I asked that question because that's a vocation. So did you have like this draw to it, or was it more about you had been unsuccessful to get it up to that point and the goal was getting the job? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was a little of both.
Okay.
So I definitely, I wanted it because, I don't know, I guess it was like the more... I got on the list and I'm like, all right, like I'm
sure,
getting hopeful, getting close. Actually, after that second time, I took the test a third time. I wasn't too optimistic about it. I was actually working at this dry cleaners then. I was a like account manager and I drove around. I also picked up the dry cleaning. We did like the hotels downtown. We did like PNC Park and
mm-hmm.
Heinz Field and stuff, like linens. their linens and everything. And the funny thing is, actually, the day that I got the call the third time, the next step after that is you go and get like drug tested, and you get like polygraph and like
right. Polygraph.
So, yeah.
For a fireman?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did not know
lie
that.
detector test. Yeah.
Right on.
So yeah, when I got the call for that, it was like, okay, this is moving forward. But actually, that same day at the dry cleaner, my boss was like, "Hey, we're thinking about giving you like an assistant GM position. Like, you can take on these new clients and take a percentage." And I'm like,
did he know, or is it just coincidence?
So I didn't say anything. Because I, wasn't very optimistic about it. So I hadn't mentioned it this time, the third time.
Right.
But I was like, you know what, like, and my boss, she was actually like, I had no idea. And I was like, yeah, well, I wasn't sure. This is the third time, and I've been, it was probably over the span of like 7 or 8 years. So,
okay,
the first, the second, the third test. So it was, but yeah. I was like, this is something I really want, and
okay. So you make the decision, you do it. Let me ask you this: do you remember the first call that you went on?
The first fire, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The first fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first call too. Yeah. First responder call.
Okay.
It was a car accident, and the person was one of those like big taxis, like a taxi van.
Yeah.
And someone was pretty hurt. I mean, they ended up being okay, but we go in, put the neck brace on and stuff, and before the medics get there and take them to the hospital. But it was I was like, all right, here we go. It's
I always wonder too, like, I've always believed that it takes a certain kind of individual who can work effectively with that, witnessing that kind of pain. Obviously those in the medical community and so forth, but firemen are often forgotten when people think about people that are witnessing pain, because I think when people think of firemen, they're thinking about saving people and then the physical structures you're battling and the actual fire you're battling, right? But I mean, you can see a lot of terrible pain, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're EMTs too, so we're first responders.
Right.
That's the majority of our calls.
Okay. Is that that's a requirement?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did not know that either.
Yeah, so that's the first 8 weeks of the fire academy. It's like a cram course, EMT, and that was really hard for me too. So
okay.
Just kind of like cramming the books and learning every day. You do hands-on, practical training, and so it was for me it was pretty difficult, just that part, learning everything, testing on it. I'm not a great test taker. I have high anxiety, but it's just like, especially all that where that it's
a lot. It's a lot. What's a typical day like for a full-time firefighter? Like, what is it? Because the public probably has the misconception, I'm sure I do, as to what your work week looks like.
Well, our schedule for the city, we work 24-hour shifts, and then we're off 72 hours. So it's a decent schedule. And then we get like overtime opportunities in there too. Okay, so let me make sure I understand. You should work 24 hours straight. 7 a.m. to 7 a.m.
And then 72 hours off.
Yep.
Okay.
So like I actually work tomorrow. So I'll be working tomorrow 7 a.m. till the next day 7 a.m. And then I'll be off for 3 days basically and work again Sunday.
Okay, that's an interesting schedule. And so what goes beyond, what is the thought behind that? Like the 12-hour shift? Or 24-hour shift. What's the thought behind that? I'm not really sure. Because it certainly is odd.
Yeah, I know they used to do like you would work 4-day shifts in a row, and then you'd be off 4 days, and then you switch to nights and do 4 nights in a row. And then, I don't know, some of the older guys that have been on a while, they like that schedule too.
Okay.
I don't know, I kind of like the 24.
Sure, it's like some decent off time too.
Yeah. So
at a firehouse, what's there? Are there sleeping rooms in there? There's kitchens. I mean, how's it configured?
So ours is the kitchen's kind of like right next to the sitting room, the living room. So it's just like one big room, and then the sleeping quarters are upstairs. You got like twin beds up there, not the most comfortable, but but yeah, we get to sleep and get calls overnight since we're working 24 hours.
Right.
Yeah. So some nights, you're you're up a lot.
For 24 hours though, if you're not on a call, you have to be.
We're there, yeah.
You're there and available.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously how the system works, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we're there the whole time.
Have there been moments? I'm sure there has been. That was a bad question. Can you talk about any moments you've had where you maybe have been driving home after, performing or out on calls and so forth, where you've like really taken stock in that job and reflected, like, this is a really good thing I do? Because I'd imagine you've probably a lot of opportunities to feel that way.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I probably don't do it enough.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's a fair response.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something weird about, I don't know, for me, I wasn't in the military. I'm not a veteran, so when people say, being a firefighter, like, thank you for your service, I feel kind of odd. Like, I don't, I say that to veterans. I'm not I don't know. So I just, I say thank you, it's our pleasure or whatever, but it's
very dangerous work.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's something I like to do.
How's the training? I would imagine there's ongoing training. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. Con ed, they call it, continuing education. But
yes.
Yeah. It's like, I always think of Billy Madison, back to school.
Off we go.
Yeah. But yeah, we go pretty much every month. There's a different training you go just to kind of like brush up. Usually like some EMT hands-on stuff,
okay.
Some fire stuff. Just we just had a hazmat course where you kind of like go over stuff again.
There's so many potentialities, like anything. There's so many things can happen. And the buildings are all built differently.
Right.
Commercial buildings are just all configured differently. Like there's really no cookie cutter training that could apply to big swaths of potentials, right? I mean, everything's different.
And there's so much that's involved. I mean, like, just everything that's involved. It's a lot to, you don't really think about, things like that usually, like building construction, different, accelerants and things. Just, there's a lot to take in. And sometimes, if you don't keep up on it, you forget things, or, you kind of, it's not fresh. So it's like, oh yeah, I need to like brush up on that.
So let me ask you this. Let's say there was a chemical spill on Neville Island here. Let's say one of those 18-wheelers that are carrying chemicals or hazardous. Let's say it would spill over onto the Grand Avenue over there. So you have that scenario. Like would you folks? I'm talking just speaking generally. Would firefighters be called over there as well as other people to deal with the chemicals? Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, that's probably more. So there's only, I think, 2 city companies that do hazmat.
Hazmat, okay.
So yeah, so they'll come, the firefighters, and then there's outside sources that come too. Like,
so are there private companies that handle hazmat remediation, I guess they call it, or is it a government agency?
Probably government, I would say.
Okay.
Like maybe the county would come in and just kind of
hazmat specialists or something like that.
Yeah, the bigger outside companies would come in.
Okay.
Depending on the size too, just
because that's an example of something you can get called to, but then an hour later you could be fighting a 1-story fire in a frame house, right?
Yeah, or doing CPR on somebody.
Pulling CPR, taking a cat out of a tree, maybe. I don't know. I mean, have you ever taken a cat out of a tree?
I have not, no, but it does happen very rarely. But
it's actually happened. That stuff really happens. What's the weirdest call?
Weirdest.
Come on, there had to be some really weird ones.
You put me on a spot. I don't know. I don't know. Really weird. I'll have to come back with that one.
That's okay. As are firefighters generally treated pretty well when you go out into college? Do you ever feel that you've been in danger at all? Any circumstances besides the fire killing you, of course.
Right.
But
personally, no. But we do carry bulletproof vests now.
I did not know that. When did that start?
Roughly. Fairly recently, the last few years.
Okay.
We all got issued.
Wow, that's a shame.
And now, just this year, we just started going on gunshots, like gunshot victims.
Okay.
So, we always were like first responders, but now, we'll go, and they want us there more like first hands-on.
Got it.
With the police and medics and everything.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to dive into this running a little bit here because
Sure.
just to let you know where I am coming from, I don't run because of too many years of baseball in my ankles. That's my excuse. But too much pain in my ankles. But I'm an avid walker, meaning like I strap a 20-pound weight vest on and I go at a pretty good clip for an hour every day.
Oh,
That's
nice.
my thing. I don't know if it's nice or not. My body doesn't
No,
tell me
it's
it's
good.
nice, but it's, yeah.
You're moving.
I do, yeah. I go at it. So I'm kind of an avid hobbyist in that regard. Every once in a while, Steve, I feel like I want to take off and start running, especially when I'm feeling great out there, when the weather's nicer. And then I start to run and I'm like, this is, I better do what I'm doing. But the dedication part of it is there for me. It's just not as strenuous naturally as if I was running with that 20-pound weight vest on. My point is, you got to really want to do it because I'm just walking religiously every day. And there are days I'm like, I don't want, it's snowing out or it's raining. And I got a pretty cool treadmill. I got one of those manual ones with the slats.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the name of them are.
Yeah, I forget, but I've only
Honestly,
used.
a pretty penny, but they're better. I think they're more of a workout than the mechanical.
It's like
ones.
Self-propelled.
Yeah, it's there. This is the fact that it's manual, completely manual. It's not self-propelled. And it just takes more effort to do it.
Yeah.
But I try to be outside when I can. I prefer it outside. I prefer really real walking. But my point is, I understand how it's so hard to stay motivated or stay disciplined because the tug is always there to take a night off.
Yeah.
So now you're doing the same thing, but you're running and you're running long distances. So my overall point is, no one just wakes up one day and says, hey, I want to start running.
Yeah.
And sticks with it. That's
Right.
a very rare thing. So what was the running bug? Where'd that come from?
So I said I did it when I was younger, and then I didn't for a long time.
Okay.
And when I got on the fire department, 2015, I wasn't in the greatest shape. I was a little heavier, but I did kind of like train to get on, to take the physical tests and everything. But I was training, so I was like kind of getting in better shape. But I still wasn't like a big runner or anything. I'd run a little bit here and there. And then when I got on the fire department, I did run the great race. I think it was 2017.
Okay.
And before that,
And how many miles is that? Is it K, right?
10K.
10K.
So it's like
Okay, that's 10K.
6.2. Yeah.
Okay.
But before that, I had to train for that because it was hard for me to run a mile. Like I couldn't run a mile without stopping.
I get it.
And I was heavier for that too. But I did it, and mainly because we got the paid day off. But
The truth is out now.
which a lot of people did it for that reason.
Of course.
But it was, it was a motivator.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
But I did it, and afterwards, it's like, my goal for that race was to not stop because I knew if I stopped to walk, it would be hard for me to get going again. And I did. I kept moving the whole time, and it was tough. I forget my time was, like 55, 56 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. Not great, not terrible, but but I did it, and I felt good. I was like, all right. And I didn't really keep up with it after that. I was actually depressed for a while.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it until on the other side of that kind of depression. I didn't realize what was going on really. I wasn't like, I'm depressed, I'm this. I just, I felt numb for a while.
Yeah.
And it was even before I got on the fire department, and maybe that's what kind of like drove me to do that. It kind of lit a fire in me.
Okay.
Where, I was depressed during that time too. So maybe that was like something that kind of like kept me going.
Sure.
I hadn't really thought about that, but, it kind of started, a good friend of mine actually committed suicide.
Okay.
And it was in 2011, Russell. And I didn't see it coming at all. It completely blindsided me. He was like such a good dude. Like I hope to like live the way he did because I'm very like self-conscious, big time introvert, and like he was the opposite. He was just like did whatever, super funny, outgoing, like everybody loved him. Just the life of the party. He just like, he would do anything anywhere without, you know, thinking, you know, am I going to look stupid? Like, you know, what I think sometimes. But just a really good dude, and just it completely took me by surprise, and I don't know, it just, and I didn't think of this till way later, but that and a couple other things that were going on around then, it kind of, I think that's when I kind of like got in that funk and got in that depression. Didn't really realize it, just kind of was living, you know, working these jobs and kind of drinking a lot. And yeah, so I was in that place for a long time. So yeah, when I could actually pinpoint the date, it was April 1st, 2019.
Okay.
So for a while, so I've been trying to get help for the depression, because I kind of like, I knew that like I wasn't feeling good. Like I said, I was in a funk. I was just numb. Like I didn't feel happy, didn't feel sad. It was just kind of like.
You knew that from like 2011-ish?
No,
to 19?
A little later on, like a few years later.
Okay.
Where I was just like, I don't know, I kind of just noticed that like I'm not really feeling, like I'd go out, drink a lot, go out with friends, and still be this like outgoing, funny like guy, but on the inside kind of not really feeling it.
Sure. Like a numb, right? A numbness? Yeah.
So kind of like putting on the happy face, because I was always that guy.
Yep.
And, you know, still having a good time and stuff, but afterwards, at the end of the night, kind of just knowing something was off and like not feeling really happy.
Okay.
And just numb, like I said. And, you know, went through a couple relationships like that where it was exciting at first. Then I'd get kind of, you know, bored and just like, and it was all me, because I kind of didn't know what was going on. And I also didn't know that I needed to work on myself before finding these like outside relationships to kind of.
But you were able to recognize that something
later
was off.
on. Yeah. But,
okay. Okay.
But yeah, once I knew that like I was, you know, wasn't feeling good and stuff, I tried to get some help, you know, saw like a psychiatrist, tried medications, and nothing really worked. It was like,
wow.
I'm not really sure, you know, I'd try this medication for a month or two, kind of go back, like, I'm not feeling any different. All right, try this one. It was like,
that's what they do.
Yeah. And it was kind of just throwing them all at me, and like, all right, that's not working.
This one's a serotonin uptake inhibitor, and this one's a something else. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, great, it's going to make me feel good. And I'm like, a month later, like, when's it going to make me feel good?
Yeah.
And then even after a while, the psychiatrist was like, I'm not really sure, you know. He basically, you know, was
give up.
Not in so many words, but it was like,
not.
I actually gave up. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I'm not. I kind of stopped seeing him.
Did the pills make you feel different, just not good, or just you
really.
felt nothing?
I didn't feel anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then it wasn't constant either. Like here and there, I'd get like maybe it'd be a day where I felt a little bit of happiness, like a little something.
Yeah.
And then it was just like back.
Okay.
So it was never constant, but so for a while I saw a couple of different therapists just to kind of like try and talk it out. Nothing was really working, and I met my wife, and you know, it's still, she knew that something was a little off.
Okay.
Like she could see that. I mean,
it's a woman's intuition, pal.
Yeah.
Can't deny that.
Yeah. We got along really well. Everything was great. But I didn't like to talk about things. I didn't like to talk about myself, and I would kind of avoid confrontations, you know, arguments. I would just kind of say, you know, like, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it. And it was during that time where I was depressed, and I was really an alcoholic. Like I was just drinking too much, and it got really bad at one time.
So let me ask you this: were you drinking every day?
Almost, yeah.
Okay.
There were days, I mean, a lot of times she would work like night shifts. She worked 12 hours and before we lived together too. But I'd always have like a bottle of rum at home and make myself, double, basically triple rum and Cokes. Mostly rum, a little bit of Coke, and just, sit there, either, video games at the time or watching movies and just drink, eat very unhealthy, pizzas, McDonald's, and that's why my weight fluctuated, but
that'll do it.
Yeah. And would just basically drink until I passed out. Like I get really tired and fall asleep. Sleep an obscene amount of, till noon the next day, 1, 2 sometimes.
So this is probably easier for you to fall into this because you're off 72 hours, right?
Yeah.
You're working 24 and off 72. You have these like longer stretches every other day almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was probably a little bit before I got on, but then like, when I was training and stuff, I was kind of a little more healthy. But yeah, I kind of fell back into that.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was, I was off and it was easy to, and I would, I would turn down overtime opportunities because I was hungover and didn't, that was the other thing. I grew up with migraines. So like from the age of 9 or 10 until probably early 30s.
Wow.
I had migraines and, I saw a neurologist and I was on medications for that too. My dad had migraines, which turned into cluster headaches, and so thanks, Dad.
Genetics.
He said his dad had them too. So like, well, it just ran down. And
did the doctor think that maybe the medication for the migraines maybe contributed to the depression at all?
See, a lot of migraine medication is also antidepressants. So
did not know that.
Yeah. Okay. So I, there were so many I took them. Yeah. I forget the names right now, but and maybe that's why I was so, happy outgoing when I was younger and more like,
could be
almost like I had like ADD almost, where I'm like bursting out of energy and like class clown. And I mean, that was me in elementary school.
Okay.
That was a big cut up.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that could have contributed to it, but,
and you said it was day in April of 19?
Yes. April 1st, 2019.
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's
Of course it was April Fool's Day.
Yeah, easier to remember.
Yeah, true. So what was different about that day?
So I had an epiphany that day, and I'd never used that word before because I'd never had this type of clarity before. But I'd been trying for a while to not feel numb, kind of like feel better. And I wanted to feel better. But there was a time where I was kind of wondering, especially after all those medications I tried that didn't work, where I thought, maybe this is just how it's going to be. Like, maybe I just won't feel, I'll feel numb for the rest of my life. Okay. And I'm kind of like at that point. And I wasn't like suicidal or anything. I'd thought about it before, but never really, considered it or anything. And then with my good friend Russell, that, when he did that, like I said, that just kind of, it's still hard to talk about.
Sure.
It's,
sure.
And I don't really talk about it much. The crazy thing is my wife now, she knew him too from school and everything. And just so many people knew him and just knew how awesome he was.
Right. It's always the good ones.
Yeah. And it just sucks because you're like, I didn't know anything that was going on. That like, if I would have known, like, I would have done anything to try and help him and say, hey man, like, I love you, dude. Like it's,
of course.
But, so yeah, I just thought that that's the way it was going to be. Kind of like I was just drinking. And that was a cycle for a while, that waking up hungover, doing that. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, she saw, she saw what it was doing to me, and she knew I was in a bad way. So I've been trying different things for a while. I got my medical marijuana card.
Mm-hmm.
So towards the end of that, I was trying like the low dose edibles.
Mm-hmm.
And something with that kind of helped a little bit, like where I think it helped because before that time, because I'd been trying to help myself and I went to what everybody does, I go to YouTube.
Of course.
I was trying to get motivated, so I'd type in motivation.
Oh, okay.
And it sounds silly, but all these videos popped up. And I learned it's like a whole like culture, basically. It's
the self-development genre.
Yeah. And you always hear about, self-help books and my thought was always, I don't need that. What's that? Like when you're not, even when you're in a bad place too, it's kind of like
you're not often receptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just, you
sure.
kind of want to like talk it down. Like, oh, that's stupid. That's, you're very judgmental. You can't like step back and
I get it.
see both sides of the coin. But it's, so I just kind of was like looking up different things. I found this guy, David Goggins.
Oh, yeah. I knew you would say that.
And not that he was the only one.
You went right to hardcore. I mean, you didn't ease your way into the self-development genre. You went right to the master.
Yeah.
That's pure hardcore.
And I'm sure at first I was probably like, what's this? This guy's, full of himself. What's he? He's, whatever. But
he's a freak.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you know, he's unbelievable.
Yeah. But the more that I kind of, well, the thing is, he kept popping up in all the videos that I was watching. So
he's
it's like
damn successful.
Yeah.
He's reached and touched so many people. That's why he's all constantly showing up.
Yeah. So it was, this motivational video is it's 10 minutes of different motivational speeches, kind of like pump you up, and it was kind of working. And I was like, all right, like this is kind of helping.
Let's unpack that. So, do you remember like what primarily about Goggins or his story or any particular couple of sentences or a paragraph that he talked about that got you initially? Do you remember?
So let me get back to it. So this epiphany I had, so it was April 1st, and I just had these thoughts where I was kind of like going back and thinking about things, kind of like, self-therapy. And I had been going to therapy, so it was kind of fresh in my mind. But, I was going back and I thought about Russell. I thought about other things that happened and kind of like realized that might have started my depression, realized that my feeling numb was depression, because not really knowing what it is, it's just kind of, you're feeling it, you're not feeling it.
Right.
But you don't really realize it until you kind of like start to think about it. And it all started with kind of being in the moment, which I was learning in therapy and which I had a hard time doing, which is kind of just stepping back and taking a breath and seeing where you are right now.
Right.
And, how you're feeling and everything, and just think about yourself, but like step back. And that's when I just like started reflecting on, my past and everything. And I just started having all these thoughts and this clarity. And it was just like someone lit a light bulb in my head where it's like, oh man, like it's all clicking, where it's like, all right, like I can feel better. Like I can kind of like get on the other side of this. Like I need to start taking care of myself. And, like I said, there was outside influences like Goggins and stuff, but so when I had all these thoughts, because it was so like, it was such a surprise to me. So I started writing it down, like, and I started, writing in a journal, which I haven't really done since, a lot since then, but it's one of the habits I kind of want to get back into, because it's helped me a lot. But I just started writing, and then, I was just having all these thoughts. So I was like recording them into my like speech to text. So like, it was just like flowing. Like thoughts were flowing out, and it was just like so much clarity. And so I stopped drinking.
Cold turkey.
Yeah.
Right on.
I knew I needed to. I knew that I was feeling numb already, and I was drinking because I was feeling numb and feeling more numb, if that's possible.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had to do that. And it was probably at least a week before I told my girlfriend at the time any of this. I didn't know how to tell her. And I said before, I always kept everything in, and I kept, she'd want to talk about things, about us or about me. And I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, let me go to sleep. Like, I just wouldn't, I'd avoid it. And I did that for a long time. And I think I did that in relationships and everything. It's just, I just wasn't, I wasn't really living in the moment. I wasn't taking everything in. I didn't want to talk about anything, my feelings. I just didn't, because I wasn't feeling great. So I was just, leave me alone. Let's have fun. Let's have a good time. Let's
not go too deep.
Let's not worry. And
surface level stuff. Right.
So I opened up to her and I told her, everything. I was like, because I felt kind of silly because it was like all these thoughts all at once. I kind of felt like this is crazy. Like I scribbled 2 or 3 pages in my journal, like full pages, all these thoughts. But even going back today, I'm like, man, like this is like so profound. Like it's
yes.
So I didn't know how to talk about it, and so I opened up to her, and I remember exactly. I sat down on the edge of the couch. I was like, I wanted to talk to you about something, and she's like, here we go. Like, what's this? So I started talking about it. I'm like, yeah, this is, I've been drinking a lot lately, and this is what's been going on, and I realized some things, and I told her that I haven't been feeling, I kind of feel numb and everything, and it's funny. We'd be watching Dexter. I don't know if you ever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's like I kind of feel like Dexter, but obviously without the killing. But
thankfully.
Yeah. But and it was with him. He was like he didn't feel anything, and he was kind of like faking his emotions, and that's kind of like how I felt. Like it was like I'd be out in places and feel very self-conscious and very self-aware because I wasn't comfortable because. I don't know, I kind of didn't want to be there. I wasn't in a good spot in my head. So it was just like a lot of anxiety and and with that depression.
Sure.
But yeah, when I opened up to her, she said the greatest thing. She was like, I knew that you were struggling, but I knew you had to figure it out for yourself.
Your path out, right.
And because she's been through some stuff too, and she's been there, and she knew that that's what it took. And she's like, I know. She was like, it was getting close there. You were, I was about to walk out the door, but she knew that her being there was helping, but that she needed to let me figure it out. It took me longer than
Sure. Well, sure.
Yeah, it took me a long time, but and she said that, and I started crying. I was like, and I hadn't cried for probably years before that, and it was just like
you almost kind of purged at one time,
Yeah.
Right.
But just know, like, I loved her so much more in that moment because her doing that for me and not realizing until that point, like, you stuck around. Like, I really do not deserve you. Like, you were here through all that.
Yeah.
And I
wasn't who she really was.
Yeah.
Right?
And I wasn't a good person then. Like, I mean, I was in a bad spot. Yeah. But I didn't like, looking back, I didn't like who I was then.
So you have this day where all of this comes rushing forward. You decide that day that I'm done drinking. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, when did you start running seriously? Was running part of like start blowing endorphins through your head?
Yeah. So
that's a thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. The running definitely helped. I'm trying to pinpoint it. I don't know if it was for the Great Race again, but I started running. And, so I stopped drinking, started running a little bit more, and I started to lose a little bit of weight, just not drinking. And I was like,
Funny
okay.
how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with my level of drinking, I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but I was an alcoholic. Like I was in a bad spot. And I don't think many people knew that. I mean, when I went out with friends and stuff, I drank a lot, and it was, I mean, there was times I was like passing out at the bar, and, it's funny at the time, I don't know. It's just, yeah. I didn't know I had a problem until later on.
That's how it happens. For sure.
But, yeah. But yeah, so started running, and then started losing weight. I was up to my heaviest that I've been to, which was 215. Okay. I'm about 5'10", so it's not like, but like it's I said, I've always been like up and down. I never really wanted to break 200. And then, once I drinking and eating and stuff, and once I got to that, I think that was also kind of something that was like, all right, I need to change some things.
Right.
But that, and then, so I decided to cut carbs and sugar also. So,
way to do it.
And that, the intensity of running.
Without carbs.
Without carbs, I didn't know anything. I was basically
it can be done.
Yeah, basically going from like non-runner, and I was actually in denial as a runner for a while. I was like, I'm not a runner. Like the first few months, I'm like, I like being a non-runner, and then getting like fast. Like, no, I'm not a runner. Like, but no, like the more. So I started getting more intense with the running.
Okay.
Like I said before, it was hard for me to run a mile without stopping.
Right.
So once I got to that mile, I was like, all right, a lot of it was on the treadmill, which I hate running on the treadmill.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Running outside is a lot better.
No doubt.
But yeah, so I'd amp up the intensity, try and get a little faster. And then, found out about what PR stands for, which is personal record. So I'm like, all right, I started seeing things everywhere. PR, and I was like, what is that? So, all right, so like my PR for 1 mile is this. Okay. So it was starting to set those goals.
Yeah, started to study it a bit.
And meeting them pretty quickly. So I actually got pretty fast. Faster than I did when I was in, middle school.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
And this is, I'm in my late 30s now. Yeah, I'll be 40 in June. So
okay. Still a pup.
Yeah. I'm actually, I feel better now than I have in a long time.
I bet.
And
it's funny when you eliminate, practically all the alcohol out of your system, how immediately that can change one's state.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was about 2 months, maybe 2.5. I lost 50 pounds.
In what?
Yeah. It might have been closer to 3, but it was definitely like you could see.
Yeah.
Like my other like buddy firefighters, like being an asshole, like you're sick. What's going on with you? You lost all this weight, and
that's fast.
Yeah.
Because I know from personal experience.
It was noticeable.
Yeah, that's fast.
And I didn't realize because I was so like in tune.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I got down to 165, and I was like, I'm losing too much. I want to
Yeah.
My goal weight now is around 175. But yeah, so I started losing too much without even realizing it. And I was like, all right, I need to I'll reintroduce carbs and sugar. And
running without carb or running at a carb deficit that's tough.
Yeah. And it was a lot of sprints and like high intensity.
Right.
And that was the thing. I would run even that 1 mile where it was like,
yeah.
The end of that mile, I'm looking at the treadmill to hit that stop button. I'm like, I don't know if I can make this. But yes, I mean, I got fast, but the intensity, it was just, I don't know, that feeling of progressing and getting there.
Sure.
And pretty quickly, it was, it was awesome going from not, and then of course just the healthy factor. Yeah. It's just, getting healthier.
Did you experience runner's high? Have you ever experienced runner's high?
I have, but I feel like I don't really usually.
Okay.
I think I have more so when I was younger. I remember like specific times where I'd be running on a treadmill when I was younger, maybe like longer distances or something where I felt that, where I'd get off and you feel like almost dizzy. Yeah. But I don't think I feel it that much. No,
okay.
Like that runner's high.
So talk about running a little bit, because so did you dive straight into like long distance runs?
No. So I mean, it started with that the great race, like the 10K.
Yeah.
And then, I'd been running more, getting faster. I forget what my fastest like mile was then, but 2 years ago, my fastest mile ever was 5:07 in a race.
That's a sprint.
Yeah, and it was it was a downhill race. But yeah, it was. Yeah, and it's all out for that 1 mile. Yeah, it was a sprint for that. I mean, not even a mile in, and I'm like, I don't know if I can make. Like, I'm trying not to slow down, where I could feel my breath, like my chest is on fire.
Wow.
And yeah, so yeah, just doing like sprints like that and kind of like pushing my distances.
Okay.
Because it's like, all right, I never ran this distance before. Can I do it? And so I started training for the marathon.
Okay.
The Pittsburgh Marathon in 2020.
Mm-hmm. During the COVID year.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a training plan. My wife's friend, she's a runner. She had this plan for me.
Mm-hmm.
Each week you're going to do this, amp up your mileage and kind of like build up to a marathon. And it was tough. It was, those there were a couple walls I hit, like 15.
Were you running outside?
I was running outside, yeah.
Okay, on a track or the road?
A lot of it was like trails. I did a lot on the Gap Trail. Okay. Which is it starts in Southside, mm-hmm. and it goes to I think it goes past Maryland. I think that's the one that goes to DC. Okay. But yeah, so I'd run that a lot because it was just like a trail kind of and I wasn't really comfortable with running on the roads and everything, kind of just, and that was more kind of my pace, just headphones in, kind of nice scenery, you see, the river and, past.
Yeah, the scenery's much better on a trail.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so just started training for the marathon. Then COVID came, mm-hmm. and marathon got canceled.
I remember.
I got a little hurt during training for that. So I did hit a couple walls building up to that. 12, 15, 18 was rough. So I was running the Gap Trail, and I went all the way out past like the waterfront, and turned around, started coming back, really bad leg cramps. Okay. I called an Uber. I couldn't make it back. I was like, God, I parked in Southside. Yeah,
I've never heard that before. That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
And it was like during COVID. I'm like it's, yeah, yeah, during like the height, and it was I just couldn't. I was like, what am I going to do? I had my phone on me. I was like, I need an Uber. I gotta get. And I thought like I could get back, but I didn't get back like 5 hours later, like, basically crawling back to my car.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was definitely rough building up to the marathon. I got a little hurt. I think my ankle kind of was hurting a bit. So I rested a little bit. So the marathon was canceled, and you had the choice of getting your money back or doing a virtual.
Right. Wait, what? Virtual
marathon. Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
It was something new that came from COVID.
Okay.
Which it actually helped me a lot through COVID.
Okay.
So they decided, I don't know, so you could get your money back for the marathon, or you could still run the marathon whenever you want. Still do you're still accountable for your 26.2 miles, and we'll send you the medal and everything. They already, everything was made, it was ready. I'm sure they lost a lot of money on that, but so I decided, I've been training my ass off for this.
So when you say virtual, was it done on a treadmill or was it done on
you could do it outside.
Okay. Okay.
And I actually did it out on the Gap Trail.
Okay. So it was based on the honor system.
Yeah.
Okay.
But me training for it, getting kind of hurt, it was a little bit of a blessing, because I was like, all right, I don't have to do it on the beginning of May. I did it in June. Got it. But so I could come back from injury and kind of like keep training where I left off and build back up. So I did it, and it was tough. I did it on the Gap Trail, so it's from Southside to McKeesport is a half marathon and back. And it was awesome. And I was like, all right, like, I ran a marathon. I was so bummed whenever whenever it was canceled, because I'd been working really hard for it and not ever running a marathon before, and kind of like building up to it.
When you say marathon, that's 26 miles?
26.2 miles.
0.2. What does that work out in terms of kilometers? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure about that.
I can never understand the difference between for miles and K and M.
I know, it's so like, yeah. Honestly, I didn't know before I ran the marathon.
Metric system. What a scam that was, right? It's like the Dewey Decimal System. What a scam.
Where's that?
Yeah, it's a scam.
But no, like I didn't know how many miles a marathon was before I ran it, but once you do, you know that 0.2.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was funny when I was younger. People would say I ran a 5K. I'm like, oh, they ran 5 miles.
Yeah.
My buddy's like, no, they ran 3 point something. And I'm like, wait, what? 5K, not 5M.
I see all these memes around like, yeah, I ran a 5K marathon. I'm like, what?
So the word marathon is expressly, in terms of our vernacular, it is expressly related to 26.2 miles of racing.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What's an ultra marathon?
So I didn't know what that was prior to 2020.
Okay.
So once I ran that marathon, even though it was virtual, I actually started doing a lot more virtual races. Found this company online where it was like, they pretty much started out of COVID and being in quarantine. Like it's called a live virtual race. So they still had a race date. On this date is the race. You check in on Facebook. You do, you check in, everybody checks in. They even do like the Star Spangled Banner, everything before the race. It's like, all right, it's go time. You have till, it's usually at like 8 o'clock in the morning. You have till 11 to post your time for this it's usually a 5K or 10K. So I kept signing up for those races because that kept me motivated. Because once I was running, it was like, all right. And once I have that race date on the calendar, it's like, all right, first of all, you pay for it.
Right.
And people say, why would you pay to run? It's like,
well, that's part of it, right?
Yeah. But I didn't get
the medal, damn it.
Yeah, I do it for the medal. But no, beforehand, I would have said the same thing. Like, why would you pay to run? Like, just go run. But for me, it was like a big motivator. It was that race date on the calendar. Yep. If I knew I signed up for it, I knew on that date at that time.
It's a commitment.
I was going. Yeah. So I started doing them, and I was getting hooked. I was like, I was getting fast, and I was winning.
Got it.
I was like winning races, and even like, once the actual races started back up, I was getting in, age group,
right,
place finishes,
right,
and I was getting fast, and it felt good. But after that marathon, I was kind of like, all right, now what do I do now?
Okay. The next challenge.
Yeah. And I think, with the whole going back to Goggins before, the motivation and everything. So this was going on the whole time. I would still go, I needed a little bit of that outside motivation. I knew that I needed something to push me because I needed that little kick.
Sure. Sure.
So just finding all these different videos, like motivational speeches and stuff that, and Goggins kept popping up, and he's like, stay hard, motherfucker. And just like,
Oh, yeah.
But he was in your face, swearing and no apologies. And his whole story, going back to your way back question.
Yeah.
So I kind of related. I mean, he was like 298 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Dropped it quick.
When he decided to go to try and be a Navy SEAL. He saw a commercial for the Navy SEALs and decided at 298 pounds, I want to do that.
Drinking his milkshakes, right? Wasn't that part of the story?
Yeah. Crushing milkshakes, eating unhealthy. And I didn't lose that much. I wasn't that.
He working for he was like a pest exterminator?
Yeah. Yeah, killing like cockroaches in like fast food restaurants and stuff. And Ecolab.
It was, you can't make that up.
Ecolab,
You can't make that
it's
up.
It's like spraying for bugs, and I go home, eat these milkshakes, and he saw that and he said, I want to do that, and
turned on a dime.
Yeah. Lost a lot of weight, and went through 3 hell weeks and all that. But something. I mean, he's.
Something
I don't compare myself to him at all, but he just.
Few do. I mean, no, I don't.
No.
Cameron Haynes is something.
Cam Haynes,
he's a beast.
yeah. Yeah, there's some out there that are Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
And there's all these military dudes that like I said, I was never in the military, but I respect the hell out of them. It's just like they got this different mentality where it's like,
well, Rogan kind of gave all those guys a platform to tell their stories, for the last decade or so. And now like there's this whole cottage industry of like super athletes that are really freaking motivating.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's just something about how, like how real they are, and especially Goggins. He opened up a lot.
For sure.
And I've read his books too.
Yeah,
and,
for sure. I haven't read the second one yet. I've listened
really
to the first one and read the first one, but
second one I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah, right.
And it's cool because like at the end of each chapter he does like kind of like a little podcast.
Yeah,
like,
I thought that was somewhat. Now I wish more authors did that.
Yeah,
on autobiographies.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
It was so cool. Yeah, because he just opened up a lot, and he even brought like his mom in because their whole story is they've overcome a lot. Like
no doubt.
Yeah.
He's something.
But so he was a huge motivator for me to kind of like do all this, and that kind of like pushed me. So
tame your inner bitch.
Stay hard.
But here we're talking. So obviously it's working because we are aware of it. We both, in our own ways, have used him as a motivator.
I mean, even if you're not running ultra marathons and everything,
I get tired walking. Trust me, that vest on. Like I'm at the 40-minute mark. I'm like, oh my god. I worry about my pace. So I try to do 4 miles an hour walking, which is like with a weight vest on.
Yeah,
that's tough. It's tough. But I try to stay right around there. And when I see it slowing back, I think, what would Goggins do?
What would Goggins do?
Right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Though a lot of people think you got to go crazy, go all out. I mean, you just got to get moving.
Yeah,
just walking.
The rest will take care of itself.
Yeah,
for sure.
Walking outside is definitely. I mean, it helps now the weather's getting warmer, but start walking out in some trails or in a park. Like it's the
easiest thing
it's
the
peaceful,
human can do.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing. Just get the body in motion, right? Like
you start walking a lot. You're like, all right, I'll start jogging a little. I could cover more ground a little bit.
I want to. So you got to that point where you've done a full marathon, but how did you take it to the next level?
So I think with Goggins, and I found out about I didn't know there's anything after a marathon. I just thought, marathon, that's it.
He started talking about the 100-milers.
I started hearing this word ultra marathon, and I'm like, oh, this is a marathon. What is an ultra marathon? And I had no idea. And it's basically anything over a marathon.
I didn't know that. Okay.
But usually I think it starts at 50K, but I guess like anything, like you could have like a 30-miler or something like that.
Yeah.
But so that's over a marathon distance. So there's, so I found a 50K. And
where was that at?
Ghost Town Creek, Ebbensburg. So it was in Ebbensburg to Blairsville, I think.
Okay.
And I had, I don't know these places. I found this website where look for ultra races, and I started, looking in the radius, and I'm like, okay, so there's a 50K, and I'd never ran a 50K before, and I'm like, all right, this is what's next.
Okay.
So I did it, and I finished it, and I felt great. I
bet.
So I kind of I kept wanting to push myself because I did the marathon, and I wanted to stay healthy, and I wanted to stay running, but I also wanted to keep pushing myself, just to kind of see what I can do, basically.
Sure.
So I did the 50K, and I'm like, all right, that's 32 miles. It's a little more than a marathon.
Yep.
And that one, it wasn't like crazy elevation or anything, kind of like a bike path.
Yeah.
But towards the end, it seemed like it was a slow incline where I'm like, is this like a really long hill, or am I just not running that distance before? My legs were cramping up, and it was just like,
right.
Like this is getting tough. Am I going to be able to finish? And kind of slow down, walk a little bit, and push through. But basically I was hitting that limit, but I realize that's going to happen anytime you push it.
No doubt, with every increment.
Yeah, you go from 1 mile to 5K.
Right.
If you're pushing yourself, you're gonna you might start cramping up. You might have to walk a little bit.
Sure,
that's all part of it. You realize your limits, and you're like, okay, I need to push myself a little more. I need to do this. I need to. Mm-hmm. And you start kind of. It took me a while to learn different. I didn't really follow a plan. I was just like, all right, I'm getting faster. I'm going to push myself. I want to go faster. Like I'm getting these fast times and then pushing the distance. I'm like, all right, I want to push the distance and just kind of like pushing myself. And it was a great feeling like doing that and realizing that I can do more and not really taking it in at first. Kind of like I was really hard on myself.
Well, you almost have to be to do that, right?
Because especially when I started getting really fast, I wouldn't allow myself to. After I finish a race, I got a couple like age group first place finishes, overall, like second, third place, and I would still think I could have did a little bit faster. I should have got first place. I should have, and not allowing myself to reflect and say like, all right, I really worked hard for this. Like,
got it.
It took me a while to learn how to do that.
Got it.
Yeah. My wife would get mad at me. She'd say like, you did good. Like, just relax. Like, you're good. I'm like, no. I'm like, what's next? back to work.
So you finished the 50K, right? Now what happened after that?
50 miler.
So you went from the 33 mile.
Yeah, I think it was after that. 50K, 50 miler.
50 miler.
Which was in, was it Blue Knob? A ski resort up there?
Yeah.
PA? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really tough.
I bet, man. How does that work? 50 miles.
Yeah. That was a really...
Do you take breaks through that whole thing?
So the longer races, they have like 8 stations.
Okay.
You can stop. They have... actually, some of them have really nice like spreads. They'll have like bacon and grilled cheese and like, especially to the longer races.
Yeah.
Sometimes like hot soup and stuff and just.
Now, do you worry about like starting to run again and have that stuff like not sit in your stomach? I mean, how's that work? You have to watch how much you intake?
Yeah. So for me, I usually don't eat a whole lot. Like I'll eat a little bit of, usually like small portions, but.
Sure.
Because before I wasn't eating anything really, just gels maybe and some water.
Yeah.
And I sweat a lot too, so I was getting like dehydrated.
Sure.
And there was a lot of trial and error with like taking salt supplements and yeah, because I'd cramp up really bad.
Got it.
And just trying different things and learning a lot along the way. Basically,
you have to study yourself, right, as you go.
Yeah. What
works and what doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah. So you did this 50 miler.
Yeah, the 50 miler was rough. It was some crazy elevation. It was like after 30 miles where I hit the biggest hill and I'm just looking straight up this mountain and there's really no trail. You see the ribbon, the colored ribbon going up on the trees. And I'm like, I'm looking around like I got to go straight up this thing after my legs had already been cramping up. I think I had like poles with me then for the elevation. Or no, I didn't then. I didn't know.
You bring them
something
with you?
that I learned later. But no, during that 50 miler, I grabbed some like tree branches. I broke off pieces so they were at a decent height to use them, and then I'd get up to the top of a hill and throw them off to the side.
Got it.
And I felt like I'm like an outdoorsy like Bear Grylls out here like. It's like, I'm in survival mode. Like, this sucks, but I'm getting through it. And there was just something about like it did suck. Like it was during that 50 miler. Like
how many hours for that?
I don't even remember that one.
It's insane.
I don't know what my finishing time was. It was
50 miles.
I think it was around 15, 14, something like that.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, that was a little while ago. I can't remember exactly, but.
So you finished that.
It took me a while, yeah.
So you finished 50. Now, are you good with that for a while, or are you like, what's the next thing?
That sucked a lot. So
that's honest.
Yeah, we stayed there at the end of that. It was hard for me to walk, and that was the most pain I'd been in up until that point, as far as like, and we had a hotel room at the ski resort, and it was on the second floor, and I was dreading those stairs and those. It took me a while to get up this one flight of stairs, and I'm just like, every step hurt. I had a massage gun at that point and doing that, and it's like, it hurts, but it hurts so good. Like, it's like, I'm in so much pain. This kind of helps. But even right then, it was so hard to do it. And it was hard for me to walk for a couple of days after that. But that was, I'd never pushed myself like that before. And there's something about, you go through a lot during that 50 miles, and
I can't imagine.
Emotional, I mean, obviously physically, but you know, and for me it was basically like 13, 14, whatever, how many hours, therapy, like reflection, you know.
Well, you spend a lot of time with yourself.
Yeah.
Under stress and duress. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you listen to music? What do you listen to?
I did at the beginning. I listened to some music, podcasts too.
Yeah.
Now a lot of the times I don't wear headphones.
That's a purely Goggins thing, right?
Yeah. But I kind of want to be in the moment more. I still like to take in the scenery and everything, because you're going, I mean, a lot of these go through, you know, national parks and different, and that's another reason I like signing up for these races. I see places I never would have seen before.
Sure, 100%.
Not doing these races.
100%.
And yeah, so you see so much. It's just, like I said, you reflect a lot, you think about a lot. And so yeah, I just kind of, there's a lot of clarity. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of self-talk. There's a lot of this sucks.
Self-convincing.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard when you start to get, you know, in that mindset, that's, oh, my legs are cramping. And then that's all you want to think about. Cause it's, here it is. It's like,
you can't escape
pain's there. Here comes the pain. It's like, that's all you want to think about. But you can also kind of flip your thinking on that. You could kind of try to not think about it so much and say, like, I've never got to this point before. I'm going to keep going. Like, this is going to push me. Like, I'm not going to try not to think about that pain that's there, but it's a lot of like pushing yourself forward. And it's just
50 miles.
Yeah.
So what happens afterwards?
What was after 50 miles? I can't remember exactly. I did a lot of races during that time.
Okay.
Road races, and then just pushing my distance for these. So I'd still do like 5Ks, 10Ks, things like that.
Okay.
But yeah, 100K came. So last year I did 100K. It's called the Rabid Raccoon. It's actually at Raccoon Creek State Park, which is close to here.
And that's 62 miles?
100K is, 62 miles. Actually, no. I'm sorry. Before that, before the 100K, I did the Laurel Highland 70 miler. 70.5.
So you did 70 miles before you did the 100K.
Yeah. So that is the Laurel Highlands hiking trail. Okay. A lot of people know it. I didn't before then.
I would imagine that's probably rather steep.
Yeah. I think around 13,000 feet elevation, climb and descent throughout the whole trail.
Wow.
A lot of people hike it like in a couple of days. This is a point-to-point race. You can also do the 50K, but I was, pushing my... So I said, hey, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to sign up for this 70 miler. And, I had to send a check in the mail and wait and see, because this has been going on for many years. A lot of these ultra marathons, this is something that's been going on for a while that I just found. That,
yeah, for sure.
This whole world that I never knew about.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you had to send in a check and wait and see. You could be on like a waiting list.
Wow.
Because there's people before you, and whoever, I guess it's first come, first serve. I think they cut it off at like 100, 150 or something. But
wow.
So yeah, sent it in and waited and checking my bank account and seeing if the check was cashed.
Right.
And it wasn't cheap. It was for me to do. I mean, to date, it was the most expensive. It was over $100. I mean, it was, yeah. And you're signing up to do this, and it's going to suck. And you're
I'm signing up and paying to get tortured.
Yeah, here.
Torture me.
Give me some pain. Physical and emotional pain.
Sounds unbearable.
Yeah. So I got in. So it's like, all right, it's on. Training, pushing my distances more.
Yeah.
I never got to 70 miles in training, but come race day, here you go. And I went, and it was so tough. It was a lot of climb. I did get the walking poles before that one. I learned a little bit.
Okay.
My birthday's June 10th. I think it was the race was on the 12th. And my aunt and uncle got me some poles for that. I was like, this is what I want. And yeah, they helped because, again, leg cramps.
It's a Laurel Highlands.
Yeah. Not really knowing how to run it. I'd never been on the trail before.
Right.
Even during training, I never went out. Not really sure why, but never been on the trail. So a lot of elevation. And, I still kind of wanted to try and go fast a little bit, but knowing, there's hills and stuff and you're going to have to slow down. But
do you care about the time though, when you're doing something that long? I mean,
I think then I did.
Okay.
Because I was getting competitive.
Okay.
Kind of with other people, like with racing, I was like,
sure.
I want to I want to do better. I want to kind of win.
Yeah.
And then a little bit with myself, kind of more. And then, then it kind of moved more towards just me versus me. Like I really need to push myself. But,
I get it.
But yeah, so I thought, hey, maybe, early on in the race, hey, maybe I can keep up this pace and, finish, and not knowing who's ahead of me or who's, what my placement is really, because
Right.
I've never done this distance before.
Right.
And, so it was a little competitive, and, a little later on that kind of went away.
I could see why.
Then I'm thinking, can I finish?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a long distance. Man.
Going into it, that my main goal was to finish.
Yeah,
and
for
I
sure.
knew that. I knew that I'd never done this distance before. My goal was to finish this. So I get in, I'm hitting milestones, marathon. Actually, at the right around the marathon one, I threw up.
Okay.
Taking, salt pills, drinking stuff.
Yeah.
I threw up. I'm like, it was sucking early on. I was like,
Got it.
mile 25, 26 out of 70. It was like, all right, it's going to be a long day. So kind of like got past that, felt a little bit better, kind of got moving again, hitting different milestones. Somewhere in the 50s, I caught this stride. I think it's because it was a lot of like runnable, kind of flat.
Okay.
Beautiful scenery. You're going through like ferns
That
and
helps.
different. Yeah. And I had the GoPro, so I'm like getting all this.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
Yeah, I like doing that to kind of like capture everything.
Yeah,
where
for sure.
I'll do like the time lapse and stuff and kind of put together
That's
a video.
very cool.
But,
That's very cool.
but mainly so I can kind of like go back and appreciate it some more. Cause,
you can relive it, right?
Yeah. Like, I might have missed that. And,
Mm-hmm.
But, so yeah, I got in a good stride and stuff. I was feeling good, and then hit another wall and threw up all my water again. And this time it was just like, because I'd been drinking a lot.
Okay.
And sweating a lot. And It was
Okay.
very humid, June, in the woods,
Right,
climbing
right,
some
right,
mountains.
right.
You actually go through like 7 springs. And,
Oh yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, which was cool. But so felt really bad. And I got to this last aid station, and there was, I think, 8 miles left.
Okay.
And at this aid station, so my girlfriend at the time, now wife, she was my crew, which she went to each checkpoint for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you need and stuff? And they had the aid stations, but she had, stuff that I use and different things like the gels and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Had my massage gun, and she was
Oh, right on.
super helpful. She's like my pit crew. She's
Yeah, for sure.
What do you need? Get me out there like
For
NASCAR.
sure.
And she saw how bad I was hurting and everything. This last aid station, none of the crew can come to.
Okay.
And I was done. I was like, I threw up everything. I was dizzy. I barely made it to this aid station. There was 8 miles left, and I was like, I can't.
Okay.
It's like
You were tapping out.
I called Tina, and I'm like, I don't think I could finish. And she's, like, oh, it's okay. No problem. If you can't, like, that's all right. And they're there at the aid station. They're like,
They've heard it all
like,
before.
yeah. Oh, yeah. They see it every year.
They've heard it all before.
But, they'd have to call, like, the park ranger to come down.
Yeah,
Basically,
to
probably wake them up.
retrieve you. Yeah, retrieve you, right.
And they don't want to do that. And
No, hell no.
they're like, well, no one could come here, And this one lady, Sue, she was there at the aid, working as aid station. Like you said, I'm sure she's done this many times.
Yeah.
Sit down, relax, just take a breath. Take a breath. Yeah.
Yeah.
They gave me some hot soup. Ginger, these ginger chews, which I'd never had before, but it's supposed to like settle your stomach. You know, I told her everything that happened. Basically dehydrated, and so I sat there for almost an hour.
Okay.
And I'd basically given up.
Okay.
I was done, and I was like accepting that, like, all right, like I'm not. This sucks, and it sucked because I raised money too for 412 Food Rescue.
Oh, right on.
So I got all these donations and everything, and I was like, oh, I'm running this distance. You know, I never, you know, I'm raising money, and I thought about all them too, and I'm like, I really don't want to let all these people down. It's like, and like I really didn't want to, and I knew like I'd be so disappointed in myself.
Right, yeah, for sure.
For not doing it, and I know everyone would be like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you tried, you pushed, you know, and I was just like, and then Sue at this aid station, she was like, all right, stand up, see how you feel, walk around. I stood up. It was the worst chafing I ever had in my life. I found out later that it was like bleeding, like,
yeah.
But I felt everything after I stood up. Because I've been sitting for almost an hour without really moving, just kind of like,
yeah.
I felt everything. I was like, oh no, I really don't think so now. Like, I really don't think I can do it. She walked into the woods with me. I mean, this is probably 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I think it was around then. Pitch black. You know, I got the headlamps and everything. 8 miles to go. When I sat there, tons of people passed me, you know, like they're filing through, finishing the race. She starts walking with me, like, how do you feel? I'm like, actually, like, not too bad. Like, she's like, you could, and I kept looking, because the cutoff was coming up. I think it was like 23 hours or something.
Okay.
I was coming up on 23, like it was 20, 21 out. I'm like, 8 miles, if I walk it at, you know, this, you know, 15-minute pace or whatever, like, can I make the cutoff? And that was basically the goal now. So she sent me off. Off I went. I, you know, said thank you so much.
Did you just walk the rest of the way? Did you run?
A lot of it I walked.
Okay.
It was really hard. Like the 50 miler up to that point was, you know, the hardest thing. This was a whole other level, especially towards the end. So walking up hills was bad. Walking down hills was worse.
Yeah,
I have to walk very slowly sideways, and it's like, so it's pitch black.
Oh, right on.
It's crazy, you know, rocks and boulders.
It's like
you're basically
running, right?
Yeah, you're basically just
wow,
climbing boulders and going down really hurt. So I tried to run a little bit. I'd run a little and be like, I just can't. I was in so much pain in my legs, like I could barely walk. I was just like, all right, if I was trying to briskly walk and keep it up, and I did, and I made it like right under the cutoff. Like,
I bet you finished.
Yeah, but that was such a good feeling towards the end. There's these lights in the trees, and it's like coming up, and you start to hear people, and it's just like, thank God, the finish line. Like, I actually, like, that was up, you know, that was the greatest
spiritual
feeling.
Moment there.
Yeah, that was the greatest feeling of accomplishment, just finishing and realizing like what I put myself through and everything.
I bet.
And just getting there and like getting on the other side of all that, and yeah, it was awesome. And I was so, you know, body broken down, everything. And talking about going through things in your head, just so much like negative talk and doubt.
All the scenarios you went through in your mind, probably.
Yeah.
Through all those hours.
Yeah. And then just thinking all those people that donated and just like, I don't want to let people down.
Right.
Like it's, like, so they definitely motivated me. And it's.
So is this race in 21?
This, yeah.
Okay.
21. Yeah.
Okay.
Is when I did the 70 miler.
Now, have you done a 100 miler?
Attempted.
You said you attempted. Now you got me curious.
100 miler, yeah.
You attempted, is that recently?
Last year. So the 100K, so yeah, I did the 70 miler.
Yeah.
And 100K came last year. It was the first time they did this, the Rabid Raccoon.
Okay.
100K. So I'd been doing some more trail running.
Okay.
Just liking the, you know, being out in the woods and kind of running, and a lot different from road running. You basically have to watch every step. You're running on like
It's tougher on the ankles.
tree roots and rocks and boulders, and you're trying.
Are your shoes different? Like, do you wear road?
Trail shoes.
Trail shoes. Yeah.
Really good grip on the bottom.
Yeah.
I actually like the Hoka Speed Goats.
You're a Hoka guy. Yeah.
Well, I do Nikes a lot for road running.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
Speed Goats are their trail shoe, right?
Yeah, the Hoka trail shoe, yeah. And I love them. They're like real cushiony. The grip's really good. I've used them. I got into like obstacle course races and stuff too.
Right on.
I use them for that. So like running in mud and water and snow and basically everything. They're really good.
Okay.
But yeah, so the Rabid Raccoon 100K I did last year. And it was tough. It's a 20-mile loop, a lot of elevation. It was a lot of mud.
Great. That's a whole nother level of complexity.
Yeah. But I came in fourth overall.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. And it was a little over 14 hours.
Okay.
1422.
Okay.
Felt good. And before I did that, I found a 100-miler in Maryland, pretty close. So I'd look for like a radius, like a 2-3 hour radius to do some races. Sometimes, stay in a hotel overnight if it's a long drive, just to, well, especially because I don't like getting up at 3 in the morning and driving and then running a race, 50 miles or whatever it is. But yeah, so I found a 100-miler in Maryland, and it was like a 7-mile loop, 7 and change loop. So you just keep running the same loop. So I signed up for that. That was 6 days after the 100K. And
that's hard on the body. Eh?
Yeah. And going in, I knew that it was a lot. Short amount of time of recovery, but up to this point, I'd been pushing myself more and more. And actually, my recovery time was getting faster because I learned a lot about self-care, which kind of early on, into that, when I had the epiphany in 2019, started getting healthier. For probably the first time in my life, I started doing more self-care, doing more things to feel better, and because I was feeling better and I wanted to keep feeling better, because I hadn't been feeling anything. So I started doing more meditation, a little bit of yoga. Found about float tanks.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a few places around here. I go to this place, Levity. But it's a lot of.
It's helped you.
Yeah, and it I think with kind of like meditating a little bit before that kind of helped too. It's basically sensory deprivation. You're in a tank, and a little bit of water, like 2 feet of water, salt water. So you float. You're weightless. Complete darkness, just you and your thoughts. And
is there music on there?
So there at the beginning and at the end, so because you could fall asleep in there too. You're laying on your back. You can, and I've caught myself. It's like you start to. It's crazy. You can notice when you're like I've noticed myself starting to snore, and I'm like, oh, I'm falling. Like I'm actually falling asleep, which I've never done before. I've never realized that was But yeah, and it helped with recovery because you're in salt water. And if you've never done it before, I highly recommend it. It's a huge stress reliever for anybody. I mean, if you want, it's an hour to yourself. Yeah. It's a little hard. Might be a little hard to get into at first, but it's just once you get over the initial kind of like this is new. It's a new thing. Which that was another thing. I wanted to keep trying new things to kind of like better myself. And yeah, my first time I was hooked. I was like, it feels great. You're just weightless. You're completely stress free, and you come out just kind of like
relaxed.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I have other people that try to turn me on to that yet. I have not done it yet, but I think it's in my future. Yeah.
Just try it.
I'm sure I will. Yeah. And
there's a lot of different places that do it, but it's, I think it's gotten pretty big, but
it is. It's definitely, and is it cryo chambers? Or?
Cryo. Yeah. I started doing that. Some cryotherapy.
Okay.
infrared sauna, different things like extreme, hot and cold.
Yeah,
but things
are you jumping in an ice bucket?
I still haven't done that. That's next.
That's the in thing to do right now. But
yeah,
it just does not look very, I don't know, appetizing.
I know. Yeah, I think I'm a little scared of it, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. But I know that I need to do it. Have you ever done a cold shower? Just like complete.
Oh yeah, once I have one time, and
it's a shock.
It's a huge shock, and I'm just not good staying there long.
It forces you to breathe a certain way.
No question.
You will notice your breathing, and that's the main thing with it is.
Yeah.
If you could stay in it for 15 seconds, you'll notice your breathing will slow down, and you'll get used to it. You can be in it for 3 minutes. If you could get over that initial shock.
How long does people stay in those ice baths? Like, is it recommended not after a certain time?
I'm sure there is. I don't know if you heard that the Iceman, Wim Hof, he came up with a breathing method.
Breathing, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he got his name.
He was on Rogan, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah. The Iceman, yeah. But he would, go under ice and just complete cold, and it's like, I don't know. I think he's in like the Guinness Book or something. But
it's crazy.
He came up with this whole breathing method where it's like you slow down. You kind of like, I guess you can get used to it, but I mean, you can also get hypothermia and
die.
Things. Yeah, there's that.
Could die. Yeah.
But yeah, like cold shower. Like if you can, and I think that kind of it helps. It kind of like resets you.
Yeah.
It gets you. It kind of sucks when you first do it.
Right?
Yeah,
it's like the extremes.
Yeah, but I've noticed that I'm sure getting into all these things, and for me it was like just trying new things.
Yeah, for sure.
But doing them all kind of with each other and consecutive, and kind of like I think it helped a lot with recovery.
I bet.
I thought a hyperbaric chamber where you go in
a familiar with that too.
Oxygen chamber, and you're closed in, you have a mask on, and it's fully oxygenated. I don't know, I started doing that more, and I felt like it kind of speeded up my recovery.
Really?
I mean, I'm sure some of it's kind of like in my head, but
you never know.
I was able to keep going.
Is it called a placebo effect? I mean, does that really matter if the results are what you want? You know what I mean? When people say I don't care if it's working or not. If I believe it's working and I feel like it's working, then it's working.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, if it works, right.
So you finished this race, right? You finished.
So I'm sorry. Yeah, back to the
kind of going off. Because it's like a 100-miler we want to get to.
Yeah, the 100K I finished.
Okay.
And did pretty well. I mean, the last couple of miles were tough.
I bet.
The
whole thing's tough.
Yeah, it really is. But yeah, 6 days later was a 100-miler. And I did a lot of that recovery that week. The cryo, the infrared sauna, the hyperbaric, the floats. I did a lot of that, and I was just pounding in. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I felt pretty good going.
It's 100 miles,
yeah,
man. 100 miles.
The next Saturday, going and driving to Maryland.
Yeah.
And at the starting line, I felt pretty good. And I got going. And it was a loop course, and I start going on these loops.
Right.
And my wife's there, so she's parked in one spot. It's cool out of the back of her SUV. I'm all set up. I got everything I need. And like she's getting in a good flow now. She's getting into it. She's like, you got these snacks here. Like she's fueling me.
She's organizer.
Yeah. She is definitely the organizer out of the two of us. But so yeah, she's got it all set up. So I come through and pit crew, NASCAR,
right.
just get me back out.
Right.
So it's going pretty well. Do some loops, getting further and further, getting like 30 miles, 40 miles. So my knees and my shins kind of started hurting. And up until this point, I've been pretty healthy besides kind of getting hurt before that first marathon, my ankle. I guess I built up like my ankles too, because even like running the trails a lot and everything.
Yeah.
I feel like my mobility and my strength and everything is like good in my ankles. I mean, it kind of has to be.
Right.
But yeah, my shins, I never really got shin splints, but my shins started hurting, and I was ready. I had stuff for it. I had I found out there's like a cramp cream you could rub on your legs. It kind of like helps. Kind of like a pain reliever cream too. And I was just like, I had these socks on. I was sticking my hand down the socks, rubbing it on my shins. I'm like, I got to get back out, popping ibuprofen. Like, start doing some more loops. It starts hurting a little more and more. And I'm like, you know, shit.
And what mile marker was this roughly?
Well, it started hurting, I think, early 40s, really. Where it was really more like, all right, this isn't just like a little kind of annoying. This is getting to be something. It's like a little. Right. Yeah. So I kept going a little bit slower. You know, stop and eat a little bit more and make sure I'm eating enough and everything. And the pain just kept getting worse. Wow. So I come on this last lap, which I was wondering. And I think this is around mile 60 something. Okay. And remember, this is a 100-miler.
I know, 40 miles to go.
It was a very long day, and they had a very generous cutoff time. It was like 36 hours or something, if you can imagine. Okay.
It's a long time to be up, period.
Yeah, just to be awake, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I can get through this lap. Like, this is, and then it started being like, you know, can I do the next lap? Next lap. I think I did one more, and I'm like, I'm in a lot of pain. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna try this lap, see how it goes. Could barely run at this point. Like, I'm walking a lot. Okay. I'm very early into this last loop, and the sun's up already again. It's daylight again. I've been through a rough night. Very, very painful night, and I had the GoPro on me, and I don't like being in front of the camera a lot. Yeah, I know I'm here now doing this, but I'm very introverted. Sure. Usually, you know, when I post things, it's usually like what I see, like kind of very self-conscious, kind of like, I don't know, since I was younger. And, but I knew I was in this bad spot. I was in a lot of pain. I knew I had to like kind of talk about it, and I'd be making a video the whole time just of the scenery and stuff. So I was like, yeah, this is pretty bad. It hurts pretty bad. You know, I'm basically, you know, tears are rolling down my face from the pain. Sure. And I'm just, I knew that I wasn't going to make it. Mm-hmm. And it was getting more and more apparent because when I couldn't run at all, it's like, all right.
And it's roughly 40 miles ahead of you.
Well, this was maybe around 70 now.
Okay.
Maybe a little over. So this was, so I start going, and I'm on this trail. I'm like, I just need to get through this last loop. I gotta get back to, I know I'm not going to be able to make it another one, but I got to finish this one. And at some point I was just like, I need to find my way back. Yeah. Like, I can't make this last loop. Right. So I turned around, which is a very hard thing to do because people were coming. Yeah. So in the middle of the night, it was either 50 milers or 50 Kers. It might have been 50 milers started. So they started, you know, flying past you. Like, right. You have no idea where I'm at right now. And, but so I turn around, and, you know, all these people passing, and, you know, everyone's running communities. So awesome. So nice. Like, everyone's, are you okay? Like, you need anything? I'm just like, no, I'm a lot of pain. Just like, don't really want to talk about it. I'm just like, I'm heading back. I got to go back. After a while, I took off my bib because I was like embarrassed. I was like, all these people, like, not like, I guess I thought if I took my bib off, they wouldn't realize how much pain I was in, and that I was, you know, not just where you came from, a casual hiker. Like, no, they could see it all over my slow I understand. Hobble that I was hurting from something. It was like, so I broke course. I was trying to go by the GPS. I got lost. I couldn't find my way back. I'm like, wow, hitting these hills, and I'm like, each step sucks. I'm pain every step. Going down this hill, finding and people, coming by asking. Then I'm seeing like casual people come through. Yeah, like, how do I get back to? Oh, it's over here. And finally found my way back. Ended up being about 75 miles.
Wow.
And it was DNF. My first DNF.
Well, let me ask you this. So once that was over, are you determined now to go do it and finish one? Or do you feel
not
like...
right away? It sucked a lot.
Yeah. So it's still fresh with you.
Yeah. That ride home, I didn't
it.
say much to my wife. She knew it sucked. She knew to this point, I've been trying so hard. And once I get all these distances in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm so determined. I want to do it.
Is it possible that your body, for your unique body, is like maxed out at a certain, is 70 miles a max? Which is insane.
I don't think it is for me.
Okay.
I don't think so. After doing it, getting hurt, I ended up having a stress fracture, which is basically like, it's not broken, but it's about to be.
That's probably what was driving
It's at the max,
you.
yeah.
That was where the pain was coming from,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So the X-ray, it just shows like the bones like white hot. Like you could see it's like close to like really breaking, fracturing.
Wow.
Basically it was stressed almost to the limit. So I got in a walking boot.
Okay.
And didn't run for a month, which sucked for me.
I bet.
Just kind of like, so getting up to that point, going from being 50 pounds heavier, depressed, and then being on the other side of that, realizing that I was depressed, that I was an alcoholic and everything, and like not really realizing it until I was on the other side of it. But
right.
Almost every race, every trail run, I'd think back to that and say like, and be grateful that I'm able to do this now, that I'm out here, because I wasn't able to before.
From where you came from, yeah.
And a lot of people say like, I say at work, even like other firefighters, just different friends, wife's friends and stuff. And they're like, you're going to do what? You're running what? You're crazy. Like what? And I don't really talk about like why. I'm just like, yeah, I kind of just brush it off. Like, yeah, I'm crazy. Like it's
your thing now. It's
it's hard to explain without going into all that, there's a very personal reason I do it. And it's because I know where I was and I know where I am. People that saw me prior to 2019 and people I haven't seen for a long time that maybe don't know about any of this thing, of this I've accomplished, I'm sure they would not believe it. And I keep thinking back and I'm like, if I went back and said, was able to say to myself, you're going to be able to do this, you're going to be able to run this and accomplish these things and push yourself, and you're going to be in the best shape you've been in at almost 40, I would have said, yeah, okay. I would have said, you're crazy.
No, I totally get it.
But yeah, so it's hard to talk about, but yeah, it's so that 100-miler, it's just, so I made a 75 DNF. It was very hard. I was pretty depressed for a few days.
Okay.
Just like, kind of wondering those things, like, is this a limit? Should I like not do this anymore? Is this, but then realizing how much work I put into it and what I've put my body through. And, since basically 2019, I've been working out pretty consistently, not just running, just like doing like HIIT classes, like high intensity interval training and like lifting and running and realizing that I need to do more of that for my legs too. And I just noticed just from running and everything, always prior to this, I would always say like, oh, I want a 6-pack or something, like something that, something that you want, but there's really no motivator there. It's like, that's why I tried these diets and everything, and they roller coastered for a while. But once I, started feeling better and running and doing all these things, I didn't think about how I looked at all.
No, it was the goal.
what other people noticed is what I noticed, like after, like there was just, I can't remember exactly, but there was a time where I like passed a mirror or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much weight I lost. I didn't realize that I started to look different.
It's the residual benefit of not making that your goal, but it came anyways based upon concentrating on the running.
Yeah, and everything else that came with it, like realizing the importance of the self-care.
Absolutely.
It all ties in. So like
it does tie in.
Yeah. The more I thought about it, I was thinking like it's not really about running at all. Like it's about getting your mental health right. And I mean, anything I'm doing, you can apply it to any goal that you want in life. Like and then once you start to do these races and do these very hard things in a short amount of time, go through all these emotions, physical pain, perseverance, it's like you realize you can do a lot more. And now like kind of early on, I came up with like this personal like motivator, like this slogan for myself, and it was to work hard and evolve daily.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like keeps me going. I'm like, I want to keep getting better now.
So you're going to do 100 miles.
I'm going to do 100. I have to.
Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind.
I have to. But yeah, so I had the walking boot on for a month and then started coming back from recovery. And that was tough too, because I wasn't where I was at, obviously, with a complete, going from basically running, you know, a lot of over 100 mile months for the last consistently for the last few years, along with working out and everything, the self-care and everything. I built up, you know, my leg muscles and everything, started getting faster, and not doing it for a month, it kind of like, you can't really do much. I'd still go to the gym and do like upper body and like, you know, in a boot.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, so I had to build back, and it made me hungrier. I was just like, once I started feeling good and realizing like I'd start running fast and be like, all right, I need to pull back a little bit. And it also taught me more about how to listen to my body better. So
it's imperative.
And so I did that 100K again last week, and the 100-miler came up again. But my wife and I also just had twin girls.
She did, friend. Chico changes the dynamic a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Identical twin girls. They are 3 months tomorrow.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So I emailed the race director for the 100-miler, and I said, so they had this thing, if you DNF, because a lot of people DNF, they want you to come back.
Sure.
You come back again next year, you get 50% off the race. So I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to run the 100-miler this year. You know, kind of a couple of things going on.
Couple.
Literally.
Two, literally, yes.
So, yeah, we have newborn twins at home, and, you know, been concentrating on that a little more. And I said, any chance I can do it next year? And he said, yeah, no problem at all. Just, you know, save this email as a reminder so I can remember. And
for sure.
So that is definitely on the books for next year, 100 miles, but I might do one before that.
That was my next question. You're going to try to sneak one in before then.
And this year it was also the same time frame, like 6 days after that 100K, which I just did. I just did that 100K again this year, a little bit faster than last year, and it was a little bit longer. They changed the course a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, just over 14 hours.
It sounds unfathomable to me.
I came in 3rd place overall, 4th place last year.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know if I would do both again. That's what my wife asked me. Do you think it was wise?
The proximity, the close proximity between the two.
I said, I think I could do it. I said, I felt pretty good beforehand. I know it's not like the smartest choice, but I said, I think I could. I might run the 100K a little differently, where I'm not trying to go fast and like, but yeah, I definitely, yeah.
It's so, to a non-runner, it's so, that number, those miles are so unfathomable.
I know.
Unfathomable, you know, it's how is that possible?
Yeah. And then a lot of people say, like I still do 5Ks and 10K road races, and they're like, oh, that's got to be easy for you. And I'm like, not really. Like, you don't understand. When I run that 5K, like, if it's easy for me, then I'm not trying hard.
Yeah,
if I do a 5K, I'm trying to sprint. I'm trying to
knock it out quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, if I'm not completely winded at the end of a race, or like kind of struggling to get to that finish line, then I don't think I'm pushing hard enough.
I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. Well, that's what you built yourself up to.
Yeah.
Distances you built yourself up to.
But I do reflect a lot now, especially on those long runs. But I definitely...
You're off, goddamn, 2
Yeah,
days.
you got a lot of time, yeah.
It's like insane.
But I do go back, and I'm very grateful for where I am now, because other people can't see it, like can't understand the races I'm running, the miles I'm doing. And I never would have seen it for myself. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to, and that like
It's a hell of an accomplishment.
I'm there, yeah.
I mean, relatively quickly. I mean, just a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, the last almost 4 years, coming up on 4 years.
Wow. Buddy, I appreciate it. Did you have a good time?
I did, yeah, very good.
I mean, was it a lot easier than you thought it was?
Yes. So yeah, like I said, I'm super nervous and everything.
Oh my
but
God!
yeah,
No one will know. Because,
it's very comfortable here. I love your setup. It's so cool.
Thank you, man.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, what are we talking? Because I'd love to have you on maybe a couple of our panel shows and some other things. I have a good friend of mine, Dan Spiker. If you're listening, Dan got into road racing a couple of years ago, like trail long distance racing too.
Nice.
You two together would be a hell of a. I mean, the conversation would be fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can encourage Dan to come down. I think you'd enjoy Dan.
Yeah. It's a good time. Just getting out in the woods and just spending the day out there, going through some things.
I mean, I'm sure the stories the two of you, they're probably going to be, to a non-runner, probably going to be hysterical. But before you go, they can reach you on Instagram, right? Your Instagram is pretty prolific, and there's a lot of amazing content on there.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
For sure.
I basically just been posting what I'm doing. Like I said, for me, kind of it's kind of hard to open up and everything, so I kind of just show the work I'm doing. Trying to help others. I need to do it more, but I'm trying to post more to like help people with depression and anxiety and stuff, and just.
What's the username on Instagram?
It's just my name. It's Steve. Period. My last name is Schohn. It's Schohn.
It's Schohn.
Yeah, everyone says Schohn, but
yeah, double H.
I just say it's kind of like John, like the OHN. Like that's what I say. But
now, do you do Facebook at all?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. I thought we connected on Instagram, I think.
Yeah, I think Facebook too.
Okay.
But yeah.
Just reach them, you'll find them.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Instagram more. It's for me.
It's the age.
Yeah, it's just like
Facebook's for us old people.
MySpace.
Oh my God, I remember
MySpace.
On that note, we're out. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks for having me
again.
I will.
For sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
Friends,
it.
We're out.